This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find everything you want to know, or probably don't want to know, about me on my website, new and improved website at hikingbob.com. A lot of the same information, just in a prettier looking website. Doesn't look like it was made in the 90s. At hikingbob.com, so check that out there. Also, if you want to help support this podcast, you can at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob for a way that you can help contribute and help support this podcast. And depending on your level of support, you can also be rewarded monthly with some pretty nice goodies. So there's all of that at hikingbob.com. Today my guest is Karen Palus, the head of the director, the head honcho, the person in charge of the Colorado Springs Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Karen, it's always a pleasure to have you here and to catch up with things that have been going on with the Parks Department. And of course, we tried to have you on here in the summer, and we did for that just as the sesquicentennial was rolling out. And now it's time to just maybe play a little bit of catch up on what's happened since then, which, as we were talking before this, really nothing going on.
Not much going on at all.
Except everything is going on. So let's start off with the, let's get the 900-pound gorilla out of the room, which was the TOPS ballot measure. It didn't pass.
Correct.
But tell us, we're not going to rehash why it didn't pass. If you talk to 30 people, you get 40 different reasons why they didn't pass for a number of reasons. But where are we going with that next?
Oh, absolutely. And we are, obviously disappointed that we weren't successful. It was a very challenging time in terms of local and national politics. And so we'll dust ourselves off, learn from that experience, and continue to do the great work that we do. We are looking at the future of TOPS, though, in terms of when that sales tax initiative should go forward, whether it goes forward for an extension, whether it goes forward with an increase and what that increase might look like, and then how do we extend them for what period of time, and then also opening some categories, just a broader perspective in terms similar to what was done with parks back in 2013, where now TOPS funds can be spent on all parks. Looking at the same for all trails and all open spaces. Okay, and it's easy for people to forget that even as the program exists now, it's been a hugely successful program, and so many open spaces we would not have, like Red Rock Canyon open space and Stratton and half of Ute Valley Park and so many other places, Corral Bluffs, which hopefully someday we'll see some recreation in there once we figure out how to protect everything else in there. Those places wouldn't be within their park system if it wasn't for absolutely TOPS, the Trails Open Space and Parks Tax has been very, very successful. We are headed into our 25th year, so this April we'll be celebrating that and look forward to lots of activities and ways to acknowledge and share that good information and have some fun along the way as well.
Cool.
So excited about that, but really telling the story. I mean, we've been fortunate to preserve so many amazing landscapes within our community. We've been able to make significant connections with our trail systems throughout all portions of our community. And then also being able to create, over the years, TOPS has done like over 35 neighborhood parks and such. We're continuing efforts like Panorama Park.
Yep.
There's some funding from TOPS in that program. As well as Venetia Park. We've spent trails money with the Manitou Incline. We've done major master planning with portions, both Ute Valley and also most recently with the Pulpit Rock, Union Meadows, all of those little three right up by UCCS. So really great work happening throughout the community. A lot of folks, do recognize Red Rock Canyon. That was one of the initial ones that was a big proponent for TOPS passing. And Stratton Open Space was one that was the very first one that we purchased. So we are seeing great opportunities in taking them when we can, working with amazing different landowners that have been willing to really support the TOPS program and participate in a way that we haven't seen in many, many years. And so our most recent purchase was Fisher's Canyon, you know, a little 300 plus acres right tucked up on the west side of town. And as we continue on that Chamberlain Trail connection all the way into Cheyenne Mountain State Park. So it's really fun to see so many things on the master plan coming to fruition. Maybe not as fast as we'd like, you know, obviously, but we're still taking the opportunities to make incremental improvements and provide our citizens and our residents with as much as we can in terms of outdoor recreation.
And there's the Sweetwater Canyon, which I believe is partially funded with some TOPS trails money for that one. That's a beautiful spot. I was just up there with the TV news crew. We weren't in Sweetwater Canyon. We couldn't get back there, but pointing out where it was and that people should go check those trails out. They're really gorgeous set of new trails back in there that I'm glad. And there was a lot of things that came together to make that happen, but a little bit of TOPS money, a little bit of Friends money, a little bit of this money, kind of the way we do things nowadays.
That's how we get things done, whether it's, you know, some TOPS, some philanthropic donors, grants. We've been really successful with our grant programs over the years, and just very thankful and grateful for all of our partners that help us make things happen.
Cool. COVID is, you know, I think has gone a year longer than anybody wanted to. Anybody thought it was going to do. This time last year, we kind of thought we were maybe on the tail end of it. Yeah, not so much. This year, we think we are. We'll talk about that next year, see where we're at. But how has that affected things? My understanding is tax revenue actually stayed pretty good, so funding maintained itself pretty well for the department?
Yeah, I think in terms of our special taxing areas, we've definitely seen some increases. I think a lot of those folks that have been at home more are doing a lot more online shopping and such, or a lot of home improvements and things like that. You spend a little more time in your house. You start to spend a little more money on them. So I think that's been really helpful. I think the one great thing about COVID, but then also the most challenging thing about COVID is just our visitation. Our visitation is off the charts, not only in our traditional open spaces and regional parks where we normally see that type of influx, but in our neighborhood and community parks. The staff has just really seen huge increases. Folks are getting out more, they're getting to know their neighbors, and so yes, this has definitely gone on longer than, what was it, the 2-week pandemic we were supposed to have, not 2 years. And but I think there's been some really good things about people getting outdoors more and experiencing things close to home as well. And so that probably has been the biggest piece for us to keep up with that visitation, not only, again, in our normal places we see all those folks, but just in their local neighborhood as well.
I know there's a sign in front of my house now that says Amazon parking only, so unfortunately we're collecting sales tax on the online sales too. So
yeah, the online sales has been huge, and it's really hard to kind of tell what's online and what's not, but I think that's been a big part of what we've seen as that stable economy for this community, for sure.
At least I feel a little less guilty now.
Yeah, there you go.
A little less guilty. There have been some things that have been, that have happened since, we've talked a little bit about that from, in the summer before the sesquicentennial to now. Do you want to kind of catch us up on any big developments that have happened here, with the Parks Department? Or
yeah, where should I begin? We had a huge year.
List, right?
Yeah, right. We had a huge year being our sesquicentennial celebration. We were able to do lots of variety of projects and kick off many bigger projects as well. And one that came to fruition, which we might have talked about the last time, but just continuing of what we've seen over the summer months and then into the fall and now winter is visitation with Pikes Peak, America's Mountain, and folks wanting to come up to the Summit Complex. And so we're really proud. That building is incredible. People are really enjoying it. I tell you, one of my favorite memories is over Labor Day weekends. I had some friends in town from Florida, and so I took everybody up to the top so they could see the new building. And some of those flatlanders don't do as well at that elevation, so I got to spend a little time enjoying and watching the people move through and use the new facility. And that was just really exciting. When you take something from the design on a piece of paper to a building at 14,115 feet and see people use it, experience it. It's so accessible now, especially the summit. Where in the past it was difficult to get around, especially with anybody with any kind of disability. So that just really warms my heart, seeing people just traverse the summit and get out and enjoy all those incredible views.
Yeah, it's pretty nice up there. Have you heard anything about about this project being studied in the construction industry, about what it took to? I'm just curious. Just think about that. Not that many buildings built at 14,000 feet. So I'm kind of curious if that has become kind of an engineering poster child for something, or?
It absolutely has. In fact, I've already seen some advertisements for like our window company, because now they have their windows up at the top that can withstand 150 mile an hour winds and such. But we are receiving award after award for engineering, innovation, sustainability, and just really proud of the overall team that came together to make that facility happen. We've also been working on the documentary throughout, so we'll have that full story to be able to tell and share that worldwide, as well as many of the engineering companies and general contractors who are using that for training, for logistics, just understanding the challenges of that environment and trying to figure it all out, because it was not, even when you think you've got Mother Nature figured out, sometimes she throws you a curveball. So, like for example, we're going to need to still finish paving that we had hoped to finish last year, but things got really too cool up on the mountain enough to do asphalt and paving. So you'll see some continued work going into next year. We also had a pandemic, so steel was challenging to get. So still working on some steel and pavers and such, but so you might see a little construction still going up as you venture up to the summit. But we've been working really hard. Team's been doing a great job, and our concessionaire has just been doing fantastic. And folks are really enjoying shopping new types of gifts and stuff from the vendors that we haven't had before. So it's kind of exciting. And there's some pretty good food along with the donuts.
Yes,
so
there is.
You have to get up there and try it out.
Yeah, who knew a year ago what the word supply chain meant?
Yeah, exactly, right.
We all know what supply chain means. How are things going at, besides being the parks, we're used to parks and trails and open spaces. You've got places like the Pioneers Museum, which is just a gem of a place. How has that been affected by this whole pandemic? I know we've kind of reopened it now. Is it back open to the public where everybody can go in there and take a look?
Absolutely. The museum has been back open to the public, but one of the things we found is through the pandemic, a lot of folks have had interest in hybrid type programming. And so typically where we would offer a program or event within just the museum walls, we're now doing things where both, whether you attend in person or whether you attend via Teams or Zoom, folks are really tuning in, and our numbers, which has been fun to see, have gone up. So where you might see 15, 20, maybe 30 folks attend a particular session or come out for a particular event, we're seeing in the 50s, 60s, 70s, up to 100 folks participating. And a great example of that is our annual Gift of History breakfast. That is our one significant fundraiser we do every year with the museum. Had gone to a kind of a full online program, and we did that originally with COVID the first year. Even the second year, we decided that was so successful that we do it again. And what's been fascinating is we've been able to meet the goals and then exceed the goals before the day of the event. And so I think folks have really tuned in, pun intended, to what the museum's offering and the stories that they tell. And it's just exciting. It's exciting to see and learn so much about our community that many of us take for granted. So if you haven't tuned into a particular event or an activity at the museum, I encourage you to do so.
I hope we go back to the breakfast this year if we can. That's always a good time for people to get together and listen to what the museum has done. It's just a gem of a place, and every time I point people in that direction, they're like, "That's free," and I go, "Yeah, it's a city park. It's free."
Yeah, it's a free facility, and everything is run on. We do have some city operations in there, but then also based on our great governance board and our foundation with the museum. So we're very fortunate, and we have a tremendous amount of volunteer docents that help us execute the mission of the museum, and then we have so many folks that have just been willing to provide support financially to the museum as well.
With there's other challenges. I mean, the pandemic has been the big thing going on for the last 2 years now. They keep telling us the light's at the end of the tunnel. I think it's a train coming at us. But
we'll see, right?
We'll see how that works.
See.
But there are other challenges that obviously are always ongoing. One of them is, as I understand it, people come and go, especially people who are retiring and things like that, or people, they get to move up to a job at the state level or something like that, all of which I understand has affected the department. What are you seeing as the challenges coming forth? You're going to be losing some people who've been here for a while, and from my understanding, a wealth of, I like to call institutional history. How are things moving along with, filling in those blanks?
Well, it is going to be a challenging year. We had a significant challenge last year with some key positions and such, and we've got a few folks that are hitting that 30-year milestone retirement age and are ready to, and I think COVID's played a little bit of a role in that too. If people are wanting to spend more time with family, want to get out and do things, and want to go travel, and so we are going to lose some key positions. So look for opportunities for sure within the department. But the other thing we're challenged with, just like so many of our other folks out there from the restaurant businesses, hospitality industry, is just the day-to-day staff that we need to keep our doors open, right? So we did struggle a little bit with some of our maintenance positions and such. Over this past year, we are looking at salary opportunities. How can we offer a little bit more and make them attractive to individuals? And we're seeing a lot of positions that folks are, in high demand. And a great example is we've been trying to fill a landscape architect position for a very long time. And we're not the only ones, not only just the public sector, but I know the private sector is having the same kind of challenge. They're just not out there. And so many of them have really good jobs, and they got a lot of great projects right now going on with so much development and such. It's been difficult, and so we're reevaluating the type of positions and roles that make sense, or things that might be more generalist, or we might be willing to take more of a entry-level position and grow that person into the role. So looking at, trying to be strategic about certain positions and how we can definitely bring folks along and keep up that workload, because it's a workload, right? Lots of projects going on, lots of things happening within the system. Really good projects. I mentioned Panorama earlier, but we've got the new playground at Acacia. We'll have new elements at Antlers. They're working on signage for Alamo. Palmer Park just got a portion of their signage. They're finishing the rest of that signage. We've got master plan implementations happening all over town, including Northshine Canyon has gotten quite a few, new trails, new trail connections. So lots of good work, and so it is going to be critical that we are able to reach out and find the right folks for those roles.
And I imagine that while some of these positions, like your seasonal trail maintenance position, it's not a highly specialized position necessarily. And then you move, like you said, landscape architect and some of these other higher level positions that are very specialized. Are you finding that it's just difficult, no matter what the position is, to find people, even for the more entry level stuff and the higher, more technical stuff?
Yeah, we're finding a lot more the entry level folks, where folks don't, even though it's entry level, don't have any experience. A lot of times our entry level folks need some minor irrigation because of what they deal with on a day out basis, some safety risk experience, those kind of things. But we're learning to train those folks up. So that can be challenging to find the volume of folks that you need. And then what we're seeing from the higher level positions is either the right folks aren't out there and they're not applying right now, or we have a competitive pool and we're not fast enough, in terms of folks that might have multiple offers on the table, or they receive an offer, right? I've heard this from some of my peers in other departments where they have submitted an offer to an individual. They've gone back to tell their company that, hey, I've got this offer, I'm going to go, put my resignation in, and they're like, no, wait, and so they're up in the antes and
Wow.
such in government. It's hard to do that, right? You're pretty limited on what you can do and how we can negotiate. So we're finding that very challenging, where folks that are, because I think they know that the same risk is out there for them. They'd rather have that person stay and keep them than to try to retrain, bring somebody new on, if they can even find that person.
And I imagine with a city government, you have by ordinance how much you can pay, and if they're going to offer them another whatever, that may be above what the
it's almost like the housing market, right?
Yeah.
Where people are seeing like these, much higher bids than even appraised value and stuff. And we're like, we're done, we're out.
That's true.
And that's hard. That's hard, trying to bring good people in. We've been really lucky, I think, and very fortunate with the ones we have been able to bring on. We've got some really great folks, and I'm hoping to keep seeing that as we move into some of these others. But we've worked it out in some areas where we can be a little more patient to get the right person, and so everybody's kind of picked up the slack. But in areas like construction and those kind of things where we really got to keep the pace going, we're having to really make sure we find the right person quick.
Cool. So let's look forward to what's coming up for the next year. Tell us what's coming up for 2022.
Well, let's see. You've got lots of great information and support for Leave No Trace. So we are looking at being at the gold level, thanks to Jillian, our TOPS Ranger supervisor. She picked this up as something she wanted for our community, and she has just run at it full tilt, and we are set up for great success in that, and I think that's a wonderful recognition for our community as a whole. We will be opening Panorama Park in the southeast portion of the community. We'll be opening the new play spaces in Acacia Park, so that's exciting. And we're rolling out a brand new master plan for Coleman Community Park. It's our next community park on the list that we've been working towards. It's part of 2B funding, so it was one of the last projects on our 2B funding list to get initiated, and we're looking forward to that. It's over 65 acres, so It's a very large community park, and most folks don't even know it's our park, right? Because it's been called Widener Field because the Switchbacks have played at our soccer stadium that's there, and it's been called the Sky Sox, or now Vibes, right? And so all of the property in and around both of those areas are all City Parks property, and we were able to secure additional park property with the Springs Ranch transition from the golf course to a new development. And so it's really got some great bones, great opportunity. We just kicked off with the consultants and the contractors. We'll be starting to reach out to the community very soon, and folks can get in on the ground floor of that and what the needs are between the sports aspect, because we do have a significant deficiency on that northeast side of town where we really have got to bring back some diamonds and some multi-purpose play spaces and such for all sports, and then work on connections through trails. We'll have a whole new neighborhood just to the south of that. I'm so excited to work with the developer there to create the trail connections and access to the park. So really trying to make that whole area in and around near between Peterson Road and Tut a really dynamic park facility for that portion of our community.
Cool. Sounds pretty exciting. I spent a lot of time at the Vibes ballpark there, going to the baseball game, so it'd be kind of cool to see the park.
Yes.
That comes in there around that. There's still a little bit this backlog of parks and everything. What else are we doing to move along with? Are there going to be any other parks that we're going to be able to develop this year?
Well, in terms of right now, we'll do the planning stages for Coleman, as I mentioned, and Coleman has a little bit of funding set aside from some parkland dedication funds that came forward for that location, and so it won't be nearly enough to build the full build out. If you can remember, John Venezia was a $13 million park development, and Panorama is about 8.5, and those prices unfortunately are not going down, they're continuing to go up. So we'll look at what we can do mobilization going into the following year, and try to bring at least maybe a phase 1 or such forward at Coleman. We're going to continue to look at our neighborhood parks and how we can improve upon them in terms of amenities, changing out. We've been doing a lot of changing out benches, receptacles, those kind of things to make things a little easier to manage and maintain out there in the sites. And then just continuing to look at, potentially what comes forward for the future, what we might be able to nibble on. We've got a lot of trail projects in the queue that are finally hitting, whether they needed easements or they needed approvals from NEPA or Fish and Wildlife. And so we've got a whole slew of, and a variety of trail projects throughout the community that we look to put in the ground this year, and those I think will be a really nice addition. They're funny because the trails, just depending on what it takes to bring them through in those particular corridors, can either go really, really fast or they can go super slow. And so we have a bunch that are kind of all hitting at the same time. So, and then we'll have some big announcements. We've got a couple of big grants out there that we're waiting to hear about that may help us even further some of our acquisitions in support of them. We've got a couple of acquisitions we're working towards up on the north end of town that we're hopeful that those might work themselves out.
Cool.
We've got a significant potential donation, land donation to the park system as well that may be coming forward in the next couple of months. So fingers crossed on that. That'll be a really nice addition to our park system overall. But lots of opportunity, lots of things to work on. Can't get to everything at first. I know we bought Blodgett and everybody's ready for us to master plan Blodgett, and then a few months later we buy Fisher's Canyon, right? And everybody's like, how soon are you going to get started? And we're like, do you remember those back over here? We got to get back to those projects first. And so, it is prioritizing. And so it's not a no. I always tell folks it's not a no. It's a not yet. We're going to get there. But we've got to be, kind of systematic about how we're doing things. And we've really, and the team has really worked hard to, it's one thing, I use Red Rock Canyon as an example. We had a master plan. That park was well over 10 years before we started to actually put more of the master plan in play.
Sure.
And, of course, people have forgotten, oh, that was part of the plan? Wait, And so now one of our goals is if we do a master planning process, that we do start to put funding to start to build out. And you've seen that with the work that's happening in North Cheyenne Canyon, and that went through a North Cheyenne Canyon master plan just a few years back. And now we're implementing lots of trail projects, lots of parking lot improvements. I finally to see the parking lot improvement up at what we call the Powell area. They're 3 points, 5 points, whatever you want to call it. That has just been tremendous for, it really sets the parking pattern versus the guy that comes in and pulls in wonky and everybody else got to figure it out from him. So it's exciting to see those kind of things get done and be able to check them off the master plan.
Sure.
And really provide the community with what we said we would do, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about Garden of the Gods. There's a project going on. It's not actually a Parks Department project. It's more of a Public Works project. But it's going to actually impacts people going there. Tell us about the project that's going on there.
30th Street is a huge project, and we just ask for patience. Check the website, check the notifications, which side, north side, south side, what have you. But we do anticipate, hopefully by May, to have the roundabout in the front of the park open. So that should really start to help move cars along. Now it's going to take a little bit till we finally finish both sides of 30th Street, but it's taken shape right now. In fact, I just had a meeting this morning where I'm like, I want to get out and see it. I haven't been down there in just a few weeks. So I want to it's really starting to transform. And so just ask for everybody's patience. That's going to be a big improvement to 30th Street, big improvement to the flow for the garden and for the visitor center, and we're really looking forward to it.
It'll eliminate those long lines, people trying to get in or out.
That's our goal. That's our goal,
yeah.
yeah. So we don't have people waiting. They can easily, work their way in and such. And so we look forward to seeing how that works out and such. We are going to have a little bit of a restroom disruption as well, so you will see some of the trailer type portables out there. They've got to relocate a water line. That's going to take a few weeks to do that. So again, patience, kindness, and we'll get it done. And Public Works has really been great. They've been awesome to work with. We're really glad to have them as a partner on this. This is some big federal funding to help make this project come to fruition.
So it's got to be done a certain way.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You got to meet all these special requirements and stuff
You
like
do,
that.
and it's going to be neat because we'll have that underpass, so people aren't going to have to try to cross in between. You'll have to play Frogger to try to get across, those you remember Frogger. But they'll be able to come through under the underpass, go up to the visitor center, head out into the park, really make it a much safer and a much more fluid entrance to the garden.
Yeah, I know sometimes getting out of the garden, like late in the afternoon on a weekend in the summer, you want to make the left turn coming out of there. Well, they eventually just police there. You couldn't make a left turn.
No left turns.
Piled up traffic in the other direction.
Right.
So we're just moving traffic from one point to another. So all that's great. What other big projects could we look for? What other big stuff can we look forward to for the Parks Department coming up?
Oh, let me think through. We've got multiple, like I said, we've got multiple acquisitions we're working on a few key grants that hopefully will come forward to help with some of that acquisition and funding. We've got a couple additional grants that are out there for some of our trails. We just received a wonderful gift from a local philanthropist to help us add 2 additional projects to Monument Valley Park. One of which I'm really, really excited about is the new ponds. So if you're familiar with Monument Valley, we have what I call the North Pond, which is a lot of the duck ponds or sometimes the blue-green pond, and then the South Pond that has been empty for well over a decade. And so thanks to the voters in 2B, we are going to redo both of those ponds, aerate them, make them healthier, really create a wonderful space. We just finished the historic pavilion adjacent to the pond, and then we, thanks to a grant and donation that we've received, we'll be doing the historic steps beyond that pond. So it's really going to be a dynamic area, and just really renovate that, not only the water aspect in that area, but also the plant life, the tree life, and such. And so we're thrilled. That'll pretty much finish out all of the Monument Valley Park projects. We had a ton that were part of 2B, and so It's really nice to see the transformation there. We'll continue to nibble at some of the downtown historic master plan sites. There's some interest in a restroom facility down near Acacia that we're working with the Downtown Partnership on, hopefully trying to secure some funding for that.
Tell me Uncle Wilbur's not going anywhere.
No, Uncle Wilbur is fine. In fact, the new play space, it was great. We worked with the artist that did Uncle Wilbur and tied the play space into the same kind of colors, and so it really has this kind of folly feel, and it's mounds and fun. And then the other play piece that'll be a little bit for the older kids, a little further back from Wilbur. So it really makes this whole play space on that Tejon side just all interactive play. So you start at Wilbur, and you've got the fountain and fun, then you've got the small kids area all the way up to the older kids area, or the evening folks that want to come and swing, out there. But it's kind of a neat playscape. It's not a traditional, no longer a pit playground. All of that will be elevated, and it really looks like an art piece. It's kind of fun.
Cool.
And so it's this big climbing element, and there's some swings off of it, some slides off of it, and so it's very different than what we have traditionally done or what you've seen in that. And that was part of the community's input on what their interests were and what resonated with them. So I'm excited to see it in the ground and get the kids playing on it this summer. That'll be really fun.
It's not your grandmother's playground.
It is not your grandmother's playground, and it's not the McDonald's playground. So it's not that typical plastic hard stuff. It's going to be really neat. A lot of shapes and mounds and things built into the ground and such. So it'll be fun. I'm excited to see the kids out there enjoying that. That'll really expand kind of Wilbur's footprint, because right now I always feel like the kids are all like kind of confined here, and if you've got kids at Wilbur, they can't be down the playground because you can't see. And so this really kind of opens the play space, makes it feel contiguous, and I think it's going to be a really nice addition to downtown.
Cool. I know that you have a limited amount of time and we need to let you go here. So, and I know we probably have barely touched on a lot of things, but if there's anything you want to, I don't want to make you late because I know you're meeting with the mayor and I don't want to get the mayor mad at me. Anything else you want to tell us about before we go? And we can do another one of these anytime soon if you want to catch up. So
very good. Well, there's just a couple, actually two things I wanted to mention, make sure that I had a chance to mention. One of which, a lot of folks have heard there's been a lot of the American Recovery Act funding and such available, and many funds have been going to a variety of different things. Well, we've been really fortunate within our community that about $6.5 million of the dollars that the city's receiving will go to parks.
Nice.
A lot of that's going to infrastructure, irrigation, those kind of things, because that was part of the criteria, water usage, and such. And so we're thrilled because many of the projects that are on the books for us are things that we wouldn't have been able to fund any other way. And just feel really pleased that we're going to be able to do that. The funding will go to our cemeteries. We've got one area, especially our cemetery Fairview over on the western side of the city, is hand irrigated. That is not a good use of our staff time or our water usage, right? And so we will be putting in a new irrigation system.
Certainly not the epitome of efficiency.
No, not at all. So it will definitely bring up the level of service within that cemetery. Excited about that. We'll be doing the similar thing to upgrade the system at Evergreen. Very old, very dated, and same thing for our golf courses. Our golf courses are well over 40 years plus of irrigation and such, and so we'll be able to do that. We've got Monument Valley that'll be getting some additional, they already got a handful of irrigation projects from 2B, but we had some areas we still wanted to get done and really kind of solidify all that. So we've got some projects there. There's funding that'll go to some of our community centers throughout the city. So we're excited about that and just very grateful that we were able to put these kind of projects forward and were accepted and supported by council and by our mayor. So fortunate to do that. And then last but not least, we just recently purchased our first neighborhood park in a really, really long time.
Awesome.
And we bought a little over 8 acres over near North Cheyenne Canyon, actually. And it's a historic park. It was historically Stratton Park way back in the day. It was a much larger park parcel. They used to have concerts and games and all kinds of fun stuff happening there way back in those late 18s and 19s. And after the estate for Stratton was submitted, they were then decided not to continue on as a park, and they sold the property that they had, about 8.5 that was still available as a park, to the PEO organization. And it's an organization of women that support each other for education. So since the mid-60s, it has been in their ownership, and we were fortunate to partner with the Golden Lotus Foundation, and we're going to work with them to develop an Asian heritage type gardens in what was formerly called Stratton Park. And so it's an area of town that we did not have a high level of service in terms of that neighborhood park element, and because it was annexed at a later time within the city, didn't follow those kind of rules right back then. So we're excited. We're excited for them. They've got a lot of work to do. They're going to be doing some fundraising and such, but they've got a great vision and some really good people that are working on that. So I'm excited to see what they're able to do. I know our new horticulturist is thrilled. One of our landscape architects is excited to see what kind of Asian gardens, and it's got a beautiful little pond on it, which is really hard to find in Colorado with water and water access. So we're excited to see how this comes together. But a great little spot, little oasis. You wouldn't even know it was there. So excited about that.
Driven by it a few times, but have never obviously been back in there. It's always been private, like you said, private property and stuff like that. But it's in a pretty interesting place there along the creek and stuff like that.
Is.
And I can't wait to see what you guys do with that. I think it's going to be a pretty beautiful spot.
Yeah.
And it's something we don't have here. We don't have like one of those Asian gardens that you see in so many other cities that, this size that have those, and they're entirely different than
and everything's, and they really are focused on really more of the Asian heritage, Asian culture overall, whereas one of my inspirations for something like this in our community really came from the Seattle's Japanese garden. They have a little tea house, and it's like on 3.5 acres, and it's wonderful, beautiful, really serene, gorgeous, and it's got water and the same kind of elements. So I'm really excited to see what the architect is able to do to put some things together and then work with the community on what it'll look like for the future. So
kind of pushing the envelope for what the city normally does with their normal terrain and stuff like that.
It is. It's a little specialized, but it's definitely an area we've seen as a deficiency. We've had a lot of requests through the master plan over the years for botanical type gardens, and really moving that. We've been able to restore our arboretum at Nancy Lewis Park. We have been working on in reinstalling and planting lots of new trees in Monument Valley, where that used to be the space. General Palmer came and planted all these variety of trees, so folks would know what they can grow in this climate. And so we've been working on that restoration. So this is a good spot for us, and it's a great partner, and we're really looking forward to seeing what they can accomplish.
Awesome. Well, I know you're limited for time, and that sounds like a great place to end this podcast. And we'll probably have to catch up really soon to talk about all the other stuff you're doing. So thank you so much for taking the time and squeezing me in between a couple other things you've got going on today. But it's good to hear from you and hear some pretty cool stuff. I can't wait for that piece of land. I can't wait to see the little garden in there.
It's going to be really neat. Just want to thank you, Bob, for having me on. Want to thank all of our amazing volunteers and friends groups, and so many folks from our TOPS working committee to our Parks Board and everybody in between that support us day in and day out to help us fulfill our mission and provide great outdoor spaces for Colorado Springs community.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And with that, everybody, we'll say goodbye, and thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us, because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.